Ladies and gentlemen, it's story time. So go grab a seat and some popcorn. I'll wait. And by wait, I mean pause the damn video here, grab your snacks, get your ass back here. Anyway, when I was in another country while deployed with the military, we had a PS2 that me and my roommate shared. One of the games we played a few times was Cabella's Dangerous Hunts, where you play as a hunter attempting to take down some of the Earth's deadliest animals. It was your basic hunting game, but it was stupid, mind-numbing, time-wasting fun. Fast forward a little bit. I'm in a GameStop for some reason and noticed that there's a sequel to the game I used to play constantly to pass time. What the shit, why not? So I bought it, brought it home, loaded it up, to find a lackluster hunting game that tries to pretend it's more modernized combat-style first-person shooter. Let's dissect this game a bit. To start, the storyline. That's right, in this so-called hunting game, there's actually a story. Why? Well, to promote the game's new style, the developers try to flesh it out with a very weak story consisting of you, a hunter with a ton of experience. Some redneck comes to your door and says he has information about an old hunting partner in trouble. Of course, you don't get that information until you help him find some family members that were, for some unknown reason, camping in bear-infested woods. A few short stages later, you move on to the main meat of the game, where you go from area to area trying to stop poachers and figure out where your old buddy got lost. The only reason it's worth paying attention to is because the voice acting is really that bad. In fact, it's even cringeworthy at times. However, to be truthful, it's a story that could potentially be interesting, but it's all pieced together very haphazardly. It's very common as you're playing the game to end a level and move on to the next with no idea why the stage changed or where you're at next. For example, there's a level where you run from a forest fire and dodge stampeding hogs. In the next stage, one of your companions suddenly appears and you're both in a dark cave. Where the fuck did that cave come from? And why did you jump in it? There's no reason between it, and it's never discussed at all. In addition to all that confusion, it's also difficult to understand where you're supposed to be going at times. During the levels, you may be given an objective. The problem is that in some areas, it's a which way kind of deal. Again, let's go back to that savannah level with the forest fire. Halfway through the level, you encounter some natives. You're told to escort them to the village, which is in the twilight zone between the end of the level and the cave. Anyway, at first, I thought I had to bring these natives back to the starting point, but every attempt ended in me falling in the water and getting eaten by crocs, the natives being croc food, or just getting the natives stuck up on scenery due to the awkward AI. Later on, I figured out you're actually supposed to go over that hill. Sure, I'm a dumbass for not realizing it at first, but when I looked at it originally, I thought it seemed that the scenery was a wall there. Maybe I'm just being dumb here, but I'm just being honest. And this isn't the only time. There's a part earlier on in the game where your companion is fending off wolves. You're told to meet him somewhere, but without knowing exactly where, you might be running around in circles. A bit of direction, especially on the easier difficulties, would have been nice. Either that or your companion could have said, "Hey, dumbass, you're going the wrong way." I can see if you were alone and you got lost. And that would have been interesting in the original Dangerous Hunts because you actually had to survive by drinking water and eating. But here, those factors don't exist, so the AI could have gave you a helping hand. Perhaps to add into the confusion is the blandness of the graphics. The first few levels aren't too bad, since they are heavy with vegetation, but when you enter the savannah, it's all a bunch of boring sand. Some more textures would have been very possible to do. The detail on the hunted creatures isn't too bad, but I've also seen much better coming from games in that release period. Speaking of those animals, there's another thing that kind of pisses me off. Alright, there's a lot of things that piss me off about this game, but that's besides the point. Do you think that there'd be some sort of scare factor, especially when introducing a new creature? For example, a wolf jumps out of the woods and you scream, "Holy shit, what the fuck was that and what's gnawing on my leg?" Instead, when encountering a new creature, you are always shown a cutscene of the creature approaching you. Thanks for the buzzkill, guys. Fuck suspense, just tell me what's coming at me so I can take those few seconds to take it in and get ready to shoot. Oh, and that moves me on to the next topic, the combat itself. First though, the weapons. There's a decent selection, but you don't get to choose what you're going to bring on the hunts, being that it's a linear stage-based game. I hate to do it again, but I need to go back to the forest fire / cave transition. In the forest fire stage, you have a hunting shotgun, and shells are laying in convenient areas. That's not a huge threat for me, as we assume hunters died, dissolved into the soil, and the box of shells lays there unaffected by the elements. But at the end of that stage, as you transition to the cave, you magically have no weapon. Where the hell did the shotgun go? And why the hell would you jump into a cavern, with God knows what crawling down there without a fucking weapon. As a hunter, you have got to have more sense than that. But the weapons aren't really what I want to talk about here. Instead, that's the amount of damage the animals take. I'll admit, I don't hunt, but I'm pretty damn sure wild creatures don't take this much freaking damage before croaking. I get it. A lot of creatures can take multiple shots to their body before falling. But I don't care what it is. A shot to the head at point blank range with a shotgun is going to kill the fucker, no matter what it is that's charging you. So why doesn't that happen in this game? In every FPS game I've ever played, correction, almost every FPS game I've ever played, enemies die within one shot to the head, unless it's a boss. So is Dangerous Hunts 2 trying to break that mold by saying the head is the most defensive part of an animal's body? What is this, a fucking tank where you have to shoot it in the ass to do any damage? Things just don't add up here. In order to compound this issue are two things. First is the frame rate. The game can get very choppy at times, even if there's not really any immense action on the screen. More importantly though, the controls are way too stiff. Trying to aim at something for a precise shot is impossible. Don't even bother using your sights unless you're using a sniper rifle, because it just makes it much harder to properly engage a hunt. In fact, even with a sniper rifle, I was able to pick off animals even easier just by using the damn crosshairs. That just isn't right. This is a freaking hunting game, so shooting from the hip doesn't make any sense. Adding on to the frame rate and awkwardly stiff aiming is the bad hit detection. If you shoot at a body of an animal, don't be surprised if you miss if you're not aiming center mass. Given the stiff controls, the game should have given you some sort of leeway. Thinking back on it, it kinda does though. You do get access to a bullet time like feature, where time slows down. I'd like to say that this is useful, but I wouldn't recommend using it because it makes you aim so slowly that the animal might run right by you or attack as you're still attempting to line up a shot. So in a nutshell, don't even bother with it because it's not even an advantage. In addition to just trying to stop poachers and save hunters, there is a side objective where you can find tree stumps and shoot them. When you destroy a certain amount, you will unlock special side missions where it's essentially a survival game to see how long you can last. One word describes this. Boring. Anyway, why tree stumps? Not only does it make sense, but unless you know that you can shoot them as a bonus, they just blend in. Add in that they're small and sometimes a distance away, and you might have to pain yourself to try to take 5 minutes to properly aim at it. Again, it's something that's entirely skippable if you want to. Add in all of these things, it can make the game flat out frustrating and just dull. Other than level crossovers, there are no checkpoints whatsoever. Thankfully, the game's stages are fairly short and often last only about 5 minutes. But if you're replaying the same level over and over, it's bound to get stale, since animals aren't randomized at all. Once again, the forest fire stage is on the table for discussion. It's easy at first, but the stampede is a bitch. The shotgun can only hold 2 shells before you have to reload. And considering that each hog takes about 6 headshots to kill, and there's about 3 hogs charging you at once, it is very easy to die. I actually gave up for a few months because I got so fed up with the game. And then recently I decided to try it again, had this problem. Well, fuck. Time to do some surgery. Honestly though, I wish I would have just moved on to another game and reviewed this as is. But if that's the case, then I would have never seen the final boss. Minor spoiler alert. It's not something you'd probably expect either, but it definitely made me facepalm. It's a Yeti. I was expecting some sort of rare, exotic, and extremely dangerous monster of an animal. Not a fucking Yeti. Why not just have me hunt a fucking dragon? The Yeti isn't difficult though. Just keep firing. Then you get a lame-ass ending, the credits roll, and you can eject the game and chuck it into the trash, never be seen again. Okay, it's not that bad, because there are a few things that redeem it. First, if you like that kind of stuff, the survival mode can be a nice diversion. Second, although most of the visuals are dull, the forest levels are pretty nice to look at, and the snowy tundra in Siberia is at least a little bit different. But the best part of the game is that you can get temporarily injured when hunting. Basically, when attacked you can get one of 3 injuries. These consist of your eyes, your feet, or your hands. If your eyes get hurt, the screen turns a red tint, making it slightly harder to see. If your hands are wounded, you'll do less melee damage. I'm not entirely sure, but you might also have less of a steady aim, although I doubt you'd notice. Finally, damaging your feet will cause you to walk at a significantly lower speed, making death much more inviting. Alright, it's time to wrap this up. Put it all up on the table, and Cabella's Dangerous Hunts 2 is just a boring game. With no real hunting put in, other than 2 or 3 optional hunts that don't do anything for the game, it's just a subpar first-person shooter set in the woods. Just pass this one up, guys, because it's not worth your time. Final score? 4 out of 10. This is Reaper. Happy fragging.